our speaker who has been patiently languishing in the, and it is Jane Laczek. She is a senior technical recruiter, the kind of person that all of you are trying to meet and get your hands, of whom you are trying to get your resume in the hands. I don't know. I can't figure out how to say that properly. She is with Butterfly Network Incorporated, and what she's going to be talking to you about today is what hiring managers really look for. So it's exactly the information that you're dying to have. She has spent 16 years recruiting engineering and IT professionals in agency settings. She launched a local office for Oxford International in 2011 and the engineering IT vertical for Tarvos Talent in 2020. She recently joined Butterfly Network based out of the Northeast as a senior technical recruiter for their engineering teams. Butterfly Network reinvented ultrasound technology by creating the world's first handheld single probe whole body ultrasound system. She enjoys spending time with her husband, Jim, her children, Luke, 8, and Lena, 6, and puppy Dutch. Most weekends you can find them hiking a trail, canoeing a river, or playing yard games. So American. She enjoys traveling to new places with the goal of visiting all of the national parks. When she isn't exploring, she enjoys hosting family and friends, cooking, and one of my favorite pastimes, wine tasting. All right, let's give a welcome to Jane Laczek.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you for waiting so patiently.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me today. I want to start by expressing my gratitude to be here. I've been in Austin for 10 years now, and I've heard about Launchpad Job Club multiple times from so many different people. And I think some of my colleagues in the past have gone out and met with individuals, but I've never had the opportunity to. So I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I look forward to talking with you today in regards to basically what I hear over and over again from managers in the industry. So as an agency recruiter, I've supported companies across the United States. It was a lot of different industries and lots of different managers. They all have been in that IT and engineering space. So just to kind of let you know where my focus has been. And then more recently, I went internal. So now I'm the internal recruiter. Why isn't this moving? Oh, there we go. Oh, that's interesting. So it has it as a PDF. So we'll just scroll instead. So now I'm the internal recruiter. I have to say that every applicant that applies to a position, at least with the system that we're using, I do see their resumes. So that's helpful for you all to know that there's not this tracking system within, we're using Greenhouse. It's not like a tracking system that will screen out your resume. But what might happen is if you're put in for, say, another position, or if you're just like in their job pool, or like notify me if we have something, that may be where it looks for your resume. So just to kind of give you some insight there. And today I just thought I would share some of the common themes that I've heard over and over and over again over the past 16 years. So of course, some of it's changed over time, but this is what I hear time and time again. So this first question that I get, what do you want to do, or what does the candidate want to do? I typically get this question when I'm reviewing a resume with a manager. The resume may not be clear. It may have this role and then this role and this role and this role, and they don't have like a logical pathway or a career path forward. This is where I recommend the chronological chronological resume, because it can kind of show your career path and where you went. I get this question a lot of times when the person who applied for the role may not have that experience, or they haven't had that role before. I also get it a lot when they've already had that job years ago and they've worked their way up and now they're applying for this role. So it's like, well, what do they want to do? Why do they want this role? So what my advice to you is when you're writing your resume, ensure you're clearly communicating the roles that you've done in the past, as well as what you're looking for in your next role. So that's where maybe in that summary, it's that's at the top. You can say exactly what you're looking for, what kind of role you're looking for, what you'll see kind of down in the interview, what makes you feel fulfilled, what are you good at, things like that. And then of course, in the job history, talk about some of your accomplishments and what you've worked on. During the interview, I know I ask this question a lot. I think it's helpful, and I'll also share. Well, I guess that'll come later. You all are welcome to ask questions at any point in time, by the way. Let's just make sure I have the chat in view or whatnot. So during the interview, though, what's important to you in your next role, that's where you can talk about really what makes you feel fulfilled. Where do you excel? How does this role align with what you want to be doing? What's the company's mission and how does it speak to you? What are their values and how are you aligned? A lot of times the hiring manager will ask you why you're interested in the role that you're applying for. So being prepared for that question is really helpful as well. So I think those are some of the key things that I would share in that, what do you want to do answer. Any questions on that one?
I'm not sure where to ask this question. As soon as I saw, this is Kathy, as soon as I saw your topic, I immediately had this question. So your topic is what hiring managers are really looking for.
Yeah.
We did a really interesting experiment one time with what so recruiters who review the resumes are looking for somebody that essentially fits the keywords from the job posting, based on the assumption that the job posting is really good. It's well written. But often hiring managers, I think, look for different things. And so are you talking about what the hiring managers are looking for, what they want to hear? Or are you talking about the recruiters and what recruiters look for?
Great question. So this is from conversations that I have with the hiring managers. So this is what the hiring managers are asking me as the recruiter. So at this point in time, when I was on the agency side, I've already had conversations with the candidates. So I usually made sure I always knew these answers because I knew they were coming or these questions were coming. Or I would, now that I'm on the internal side, I may review a candidate before I have that conversation. And I'm still getting some of the same kind of questions. So these are what the managers looking at when they're looking at your resume. This is some of the feedback that I'm getting from them when I'm debriefing interviews with them. But I'll also throw in some information as to the recruiter portion along the way as well. Because working with your recruiter, they're your advocate. They want you to be that person. They want you to, that gets the job. They want they want you to do well in your interview. They want you to be set up for success. So I'll talk with you throughout a little bit about how you can arm your recruiter as well to have them best represent you. So
James has a question.
Yes.
Hey, but what I heard you saying, or what I took away from when you said the first time, was not all hiring managers know how to properly express this, maybe in the job posting or in the interview. So as an applicant, maybe it's good for us to express these, subjects to them to make sure that they know how we properly fit for that position. Yes. So what I took away was actually good for both sides to have these things in order.
Yes.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
So you're not overstepping your bounds by kind of superimposing these topics onto the hiring manager? I mean, because you want to, it's not like, I understand that you want to express how you think you fit for the role.
Yeah.
But would it come off as overbearing at all, or by?
No, I think it's how you say it, right? I think, working some of this stuff into the interview. So if they were to ask about a time, and we'll kind of get into a few more questions, a time you did something, in particular, you can refer back to a situation that you've done something, but then also pull some of the mission and values in there, or how you really excelled in this specific area that is also related to the job description, or how it's really important in your next position that there's a really good collaborative team environment, which goes back to one of their values and missions. And it's not for you to I
guess what I'm saying is, would it be weird if they didn't ask me how I feel fulfilled, or where I excel, or what I do well in? Maybe they don't care. Maybe they don't want to know. Is it weird if I just kind of sort of push that into the interview, or make those comments of how I meet their mission and how my values align with theirs? Because some people maybe don't look at that.
Yeah, it depends upon how you're doing it. If you just kind of go off on a tangent and say, by the way, this is how I feel fulfilled, it may be awkward and weird. But if you can figure out a way to weave it into the interview and into your answers, that's how you can get your point across and answer those questions that they may have that they're not asking, without it being awkward and weird, if that makes sense.
No, that's exactly what I was getting at. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? No? Okay. All right. So we'll scroll down to the next one. How did you add value? This on your resume, you could use action words: developed, improved, tested, integrated, collaborated, built, assisted, promoted, et cetera, et cetera. That shows you're taking action. You're a doer. You're going to get things done. You're going to do what you need to do, right? When you're listing out your role, like the job description, you don't want to just take that job description from, your company's website and plug it onto the resume, or list out everything that you did from a role and responsibility perspective. You want to include some of your responsibilities, absolutely. But what you want to make sure you're listing in there is your key accomplishments. How did you contribute to the team? What was the I versus the we? You'll see that on there. Use a mix of both the I's and we's. I've seen some managers say, and this was really kind of years ago, they would be really like looking for the we, because they wanted a good collaborative team environment. And then I'll also see, well, what was their role? Like, what did they do? So if you use a mix of that I and we needed to automate X, Y, and Z. I did, or I automated, I guess I need to use an action word. I developed the test plan. I don't know. Something like that could be an example of the mix of I's and we's. But talk about key accomplishments that you've had over that course of that role versus just the role and responsibility. During the interview, and this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about the recruiter too, but during the interview, be prepared to answer the questions on how you did your role effectively versus just what you did. I'm not sure. I assume everybody's heard of the STAR method. The CAR method was actually new to me more recently. So the STAR method is situation, task, action, result. The CAR method is context, action, result. It's the same thing. It's just a format for answering the questions to where you can be concise and talk about what you've achieved and what your result was. Just want to make sure okay, we're good. My calendar had a pop-up come up and I was like, I wasn't sure about that one. Be clear in your answer as to the objective of the team versus like what did you accomplish together versus what you did. So that was kind of the example I just talked about, where they may say, tell me about a time where X, Y, and Z happened. And you could talk about what the team's, what the team situation was or what your specific task was. the action you took, the results you had, things like that. Where I want to talk about the recruiter in this perspective, so many times as a recruiter, I've asked, like, do you have experience with X, Y, and Z? And the person that I was interviewing would be like, yep. And that would be it. Or like, yes, I've done that. And it's like, okay, great. Now, granted, I would always pry more. Tell me about, where did you do that? And how did you do that? So I would gather the information that I needed to help them kind of communicate that. But there's some recruiters out there that may not do that for you. So don't be afraid that your recruiter's not technical enough, or, you could always ask them how technical they are, or how much they know about X, Y, and Z, but arm them too. Give them your accomplishments, give them your situations where you've utilized certain tools or experience. So that way they can go to bat for you, especially if you're working with, an agency recruiter, that's really impactful for that recruiter. I'll pause there and see if you guys have any questions on this slide.
So I had a quick question.
Sure.
The last slide and this slide, your slides. Let's just go with that.
Yeah.
Is it possible to get a copy of your slides just to keep with us as a reminder before we
I
go to these meetings?
could send them to Shannon afterwards. Or
Thank
Kathy.
you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Shannon almost always posts the slides in the next newsletter.
Perfect. So concise. This is where I see some resumes, and your resume doesn't have to be just one page, especially if you have experience. So I'm not saying you can't have more than one page resume, but I've seen resumes that are like 15 pages long. I've seen job descriptions that go on for like more than one page. I see these big paragraphs. So when you're writing your resume, the best way that I can offer you advice is bullet points versus paragraphs, almost like phrases. Well, you could do full sentences too, but you don't want like long sentences. I feel like right now everybody is and it's been this way for years now, where it's like hurry up and go. Such a fast pace that you want to be able to kind of read through it without getting lost in the resume. You want to be able to get to those key accomplishments really quickly. So I would talk about key responsibilities, key accomplishments in a bullet format under each position. And then during the interview, make sure you're giving enough detail to get that star and car framework down without running off onto different tangents. And sometimes if you're going off into too many different tangents, they may also feel like you may not have answered the question that they had asked you to begin with. So make sure you're also answering that. Whatever question they ask, make sure you're making sure you're giving an answer to answer that versus talking around it. I got a lot of feedback and debriefs on they never actually answered my questions. So I don't know that they have the experience or whatever it may be. And pay attention to the time of the interview. I say this because sometimes you get nervous and you're just talking and talking and talking. You don't realize that they asked you one question and you've been talking for like 20 minutes and it's only a half-hour interview. So hopefully the person who's interviewing you has reviewed your resume and has questions that they're going to ask you, and they're going to want to get through a lot of those questions to make sure that they have a good picture of your experience and how you're going to fit into this role. And so just keep track of time. A good thing to do too is if you're running up on, say it was a half-hour interview, you're running up on, that last 2 minutes or so, before moving on to another question or something like that, you could say, hey, I know this is only a half-hour interview. I still have availability. I'm happy to stay on longer if you'd like. But, be conscientious of the time. That shows time management and just overall ability to kind of keep things concise is, I guess, the best way to put it. Any questions here? No? Great. All right. Confident but not cocky. So I'm going to use this person on the screen, because we're probably doing a lot of phone interviews right now, right? We're Zoom interviews right now, and we probably have been for a while, and we'll get to that down at the bottom. But just before we look at that from a interviewing perspective, she's confident, but she's not like someone who'd be like, she's what's the word? Approachable, right? So here in your resume, this I really get more so on the interview portion than I do on the resume portion. On your resume, I would say just highlight any awards or recognition you had, be able to sell yourself. That goes back to your accomplishments. But during the interview, that's where you want to come across as confident but not cocky. And I don't know how many Ted Lasso watchers we have, but in one of the more recent episodes, Nathan, one of the assistant coaches, he was trying to take his parents out to dinner, and he wanted to get a seat, a window table seat. And the hostess kept putting him in the back and he wound up going up to Keely, who's one of the other characters, and she brought him to Rebecca, who owns the soccer team. And Rebecca says, oh, well, before I go into a meeting where I'm really intimidated, I do this whole big thing where she gives herself a confidence boost. And if you've seen it, I'm not going to reenact it, but go watch it if you haven't seen it. And then Nathan, he winds up going to the restaurant. They put him in the wrong table with the parents. He excuses himself. He goes to the restaurant. He gives himself the confidence boost. He walks back out there and he gets the table he wants. So I say this because when you're going into your interview, take a deep breath, give yourself that pep talk, do whatever it is that makes you feel confident, and then go in. Know that no one wants you to be uncomfortable in an interview. No one is out there. I don't think anyone's out there to be like, oh, I'm going to try to trick them this time. Let's see how I could trick them. They want you to be successful. They want it to be a good encounter. They want it to be a comfortable conversation. So put yourself at ease, take a deep breath, and then go into the interview. And here, you want to be direct. You want to be able, some of the things that we've talked about already. Be direct, answer their questions. If there's something where you don't know, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Don't feel like you have to come up with an answer and scramble and get all nervous. Take a step back. Let me think about it. Okay, here we go. Or let me think about it. I'm not quite sure. This is what I may do. This could be a way I would go about it. But I'm also open to other suggestions and ideas. The willingness to learn, especially, I think for everyone, I think all companies right now are looking for individuals who can be humble, willing to learn, adaptable. Things are changing so fast that if they feel like you're stuck in your way or this is the only way that it can be done, then it could be something where they're not sure that you'd be the right fit for the role. So I would just share that with you. Engage in the company. Make sure you've done your research. You know what the company does. You know what they develop or what their service offering is or what they're all about. And then ask good, thoughtful questions around what's going on in the company. Some good, thoughtful questions could be, what challenges are they having right now? Or how they foresee this role, helping long term in the bigger picture, what kind of impact will this role have on the business or on the company or on whatever it may be. So depending upon what roles you all have. I know sometimes it's like, of course, if it's a finance role, it's to make sure that our finances are in order, but in some other roles, it may be different. So yeah. And then from a body language standpoint, so confidence, and I have a terrible example today of the lighting because I'm working out of a bedroom today, but right now I have the lighting right here on my left. Where I really want it is in front of me, so it doesn't cast shadows. And I am, kind of, if it's behind you, it's going to cast you in a dark shadow, hard to see. So you always want your light source, if you could, in front of you. But when you're in a Zoom and or a Google Meet or whatever video conference you're in, you want to be in the center of the frame. You want approximately from your belly to your head, or a little bit above your belly to your head, in the center of the frame. You want to be able to lean in or, have some sort of motion and emotion. I talk a lot with my hands. If I just stood here the whole time and talked to you like this, it may have less energy coming through. So utilize your hands, utilize your body, smile. If you're on a phone interview, smile. When you're on the phone, if you're smiling while you're talking, it instantly exudes excitement and engagement. Eye contact. If I'm looking, you probably saw me throughout this presentation. I'm looking here, I'm looking here. But if I'm looking like this the whole time, because I'm looking at you in my screen, I'm not making any eye contact. Eye contact, you look directly into the camera when you're speaking to the individuals, and that's how you make eye contact. So those are just a few little things that with your body language, you automatically exude confidence. And that's important in the interview process. They want someone who, if you can, if you're confident in yourself, then you're gonna have other people confident in your capabilities as well. And if you're not, then they may be unsure of if this is the right role for you or not. So that's just lessons I've learned over the years. Any questions on this particular slide?
This is Kathy again. I wanted to ask you a little bit about reading the audience a little bit more. There are some people who are so high energy and so vivacious, and I relate really well to them. You're kind of in that category. You've got you're a natural smiler. You're very engaging because you smile all the time, and your answers are delivered with energy. If the people on the other side of the screen seem more reserved, should you pull back, or do you think it's better to just be yourself? And should you change yourself in order to, because you've read something, in the listener that you think maybe you're too much?
Yes, I think it's a little bit of both. You don't want to change who you are. You want them to hire you for you, right? Like you want the position, at the end of the day, you want the position to be the right position for you. If it's not, it's going to be not a fun place to be. So you want the environment to be right for you. You want the role to be right for you. I know if you're actively looking right now, you're probably like, I just want the job. Like, just give me the job. I don't care. But you do want to be able to be in an environment where you're going to thrive. I think you do want to read, maybe reading the room if people are a little bit more reserved. Maybe not talk as loudly, because I'm a loud talker. I'm a really loud talker. Or maybe every emotion doesn't have to be in there. But I wouldn't completely back off altogether, because a lot of these things, it's not about it, it is energy, and it is it's showing engagement. So if I should have been sitting for this one. If I was like slouched back and like this during an interview because my interviewer was doing that, we don't know your interviewers. How many interviews do they do every year? What's their role in the interview process? It may be this interviewer is brand new to interviewing and they don't realize what they're doing, because some companies, they're not hiring every single day. Your recruiter is probably interviewing every single day and interviewing candidates every single day. But some of these hiring managers, they might not have, this may be their first hire ever. They may be sitting in on the interview because they're a team member and they're part of the interview panel. You may be interviewing with someone who does a couple of interviews a year, and that's about it. So your interviewers may not be the best, the best person to model, because you don't know what their experience is in that interview. So I would say, sure, read the room, right? If you're seeing like, oh my gosh, this person's intense, then maybe back it up a little bit, but don't necessarily mimic them, because you want to mimic a little bit, but just be careful with that, because like I said, they may not realize what they're doing in the interview. So good question.
On a related question, as a recruiter, and I'm not sure exactly which kind of recruiter you have been, where if you have coached people on how to interview, but for example, one of our people who worked to get this interview with National Instruments, and it was a job that involved Tableau, which was her new love, and so she was very excited about it. And she had done a mock interview with us, and we had said that her primary flaw was that she talked too much. She provided too much context, and you had said be concise and be brief. And a friend of hers who had helped her get that interview gave her the bad news that she was not going to be considered for the job, and said, this job, you're going to have to be giving presentations to managers who are very busy, and they want somebody who gets right to the point. And we don't need a lot of context. They want somebody who's very concise, very clear, to the point, supporting whatever they say with data. And that's all. That's what they wanted. And you just were not that. So do you give that kind of coaching to candidates as to what they're looking for, how to, personality wise, what they want? They want somebody with high energy. They want somebody who's data driven. They want somebody who's all results. What do you do that?
Yes. And if you're working with a recruiter that's not doing that, you're missing out, because there's recruiters out there that will take the time to walk you through what is expected in that interview, what you can expect, and what the key things are, both from a technical standpoint as well as that soft skills standpoint. So if your recruiter does not provide that, and when I say your recruiter, I'm talking about agency recruiter here. I grew up agency, so I still call every candidate with feedback, that I've talked to. But there are I don't know enough about internal yet. I've only been doing internal for 2 months, but on the agency side, if your recruiter is not prepping you for the interview, if they're not following up with you after the interview, to kind of see how it went. Or if you're, a lot of times they say, you call me after the interview because I don't want to call you while you're still on an interview. So if they're not having you do those certain things after the interview, then you may want to look at other recruiters, because that's half the battle is they should not be giving you the answers by any means. But what they should do is, hey, this is going to be a technical interview. Be prepared to talk about your technical experience. Hey, in this role, you're going to be working with high-level managers. They're going to need you to be concise. They're going to need you to get to the point, get things done. Make sure you're doing that in your interview. Those are things that they should have information on. There's so many different agencies out there, and some are directly entwined with that company, where they review every position with that hiring manager before they start conducting the search for those individuals. And there's some where they just pull the job description and start sending resumes, and you want to be working with the ones that are connected to that company, where they have conversations with the hiring manager, know exactly what they're looking for, know what's gonna make a candidate excel in the interview, and then be able to communicate those key things to you so you could excel in the interview.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, that was a really long answer.
That's okay. That was I made my question too long too. So there you go.
Anything else before we move on? I think we only have one more, I think. So summary is leaders look for individuals who know what they want, who can articulate what they have accomplished, and then describe how hiring them will benefit. Sorry, I said them twice here. How hiring the candidate will benefit the company. What value are you going to bring? What challenge are you going to help them overcome? And then if you're engaged, adaptable, and a continual learner, those are the common themes I see over and over and over and over again when I'm working with these hiring managers. So I'll stop there, see if there's any additional questions. I'll make sure that I get this presentation out to you all, so that you have a copy of it as well. I think I still need to sign your release form as well. It's been a hectic couple weeks.
That's okay, Jane. It's been resent.
Yes.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So sometimes the question comes up as to if a person has all of the qualifications that are posted, that are described in a job posting, is that preferred, or is it better that they don't have everything the company is looking for, so that the company knows that they'll still be challenged, they'll still be learning, they still will be interested and engaged? Whereas if they hire somebody that's already got everything, will they be bored with that job? Can you speak a little bit about the different viewpoints on that issue?
Absolutely. So my recommendation would be, if you're interested in the role and you're interested in the company, apply for both. But I think it goes both ways. I think there's some people who think that the candidate needs to have everything in order to be successful. And then my thought process is, well, if the candidate has everything to be successful, then how are they going to stay engaged and learn? And especially if they are a continual learner, where's that challenge, right? So I think it's a mix of both, but you also have to remember, just because you have everything doesn't mean you've done it in that environment. So there may be, oh shoot. Sorry, my battery's running dead. I thought I was going to use my personal laptop today. Then I was like, I'll just use my work phone. It's fine. No big deal. So too much information. So I think that they're apply to both. I think you need to be able to articulate, if you have all the experience, you need to be able to articulate in that interview why you'll still be challenged. If you look at my career right now, my first company I was with for 15 years, I was all the way at a director level. I was managing up to 15, 16 people. I left that company to start up a new division of another company, managed a few people, and then I went into internal, and I'm not in a leadership role. And being able to articulate, listen, I've done the leadership stuff. I want to, where I excel, where I like working with the candidates. I like working with the hiring managers. I could lead people without having a title. So I can help people. I can mentor people. I don't need the title. For me, I needed to step back, kids and puppies and craziness. Like I needed to be able to focus on me and not the world, if that makes sense. So I was able to articulate that in my interviews and talk about what I really, kind of what I really liked to do. So some people may have been like, oh, she's way overqualified for this position or whatever it may be. But that's kind of where you have to just be able to talk through that. And if you don't have all the experience, you have to be able to talk about how you're willing to learn and you want to get that experience, and here are some things that I can do to get that experience as well. So
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions for for Jane?
Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. My company right now is up in the Northeast. Most of our positions will be back in the office in the new year. So I don't know that people will be interested in relocating, but if you need, any recommendations as far as like, hey, Jane, this person, or it looks like you're connected to that company, I'm happy to, if I know someone, I know my LinkedIn, I'm connected to a ton of people just because I've been on the agency side. I don't necessarily know everyone. But if I do, I'm happy to make introductions. Introductions are huge. If you haven't, go through the people you've worked with in the past. Ask them, hey, what company are you at? Are you guys hiring? Can you put my resume in? Like those are little things that you can do to get your foot in the door places as well. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to help in any way I can. And if we happen to have anything that you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me as well, and we'll go from there.